Hello, folks. We left off talking about training our dogs at 2 years and older. And this is, particularly about the Alaskan Malamutes. By the way, that picture is me holding a couple puppies that were born during an expedition. I mean, look how fat and chunky they are. I tell you, winter puppies are the healthiest darn puppies you can have. And the reason being is that they just gorge themselves. And also, the mother cuddles them. She keeps them close to her tummy, and so they're constantly eating, and they become just fat butterballs, which is super healthy, by the way. But we're talking about raising our dogs from 2 years on age on up, and I mentioned, just don't work them until they're 2 years. It's just don't do it. It's so hard to convince people not to work their dogs uh, until they're at least two. For one thing, their growth plates don't close until about 18 months. And I'm always hearing, they got to learn how to balance, they got to learn how to pull, they have to learn work ethics, on and on and on. But let's take a look at the humans. If we're worked when we're children, we're burned out. I mean, we're burned out. We don't want anything to do with whatever we've been working at. And a good example is Norwegian philosophy with the Nordic skiers, the cross country skiers. You know, it's a game for those kids until they're 15. Then they actually start training. So it's a sport. They are given skis from the time they can walk, and they play on those skis until about 15, and they start training, from what I've been told. And the same thing with our dogs. Just let them have fun, folks. Just let them have fun. I mean, these are Alaskan Malamutes. It's in their DNA for thousands of years to pull sleds. Just let them have fun. Let their brains mature, and let's not burn them out. And I'm seeing so many burned out Alaskan Malamutes. It's unbelievable. It's because they grow fast, and when they're about 10 or 12 months old, they look big. They are stout, and they look muscular, and seemingly they're ready to go. But their heads aren't into it. Their minds aren't into it. And uh, pulling a sled to them should be play. It should be a sport. It shouldn't be work. I heard an old Rod Musher say, when you put a harness on a dog, it's like putting on a work uniform. No, this is the exact opposite of what we want. When we put a harness on a dog, we want that dog to think it's time to play. It's all sport. It's time to have fun. This is what we want. If we don't have this, they will still pull, and we're say fine, that's good. They're pulling everything, but they're not putting their heart into it. They're not giving it to their all. They're not living up to their full potential. And this is where the crossroads between conventional training method and I'm not sure what to call this training method, but I'm just going to call it the Malamute method, okay? Um, the conventional dog mushing training method is to work your dogs starting young, and seemingly somehow we instill a work ethic into them, which they're born with. They don't need to be trained in that way, but nonetheless, this is the dog mushing method, and we work them. And what we want, I'm talking about dog mushers. They want them to hold back. They want them to conserve their energy. This is not what we want Alaskan Malamute to do. They are draft animals. They need to pull, and they love to pull hard. I mean, look at my team. The tails are always up. They are loving life. They love to pull hard. And I always tell people, if your Alaskan Malamute's tails drop, they're hurting. They're not loving it. They are just going along because they feel they have to. This is where we draw the line. This is where the crossroads are, and it's so difficult to convince people this. I mean, it's unbelievable. And the reason being is because everybody wants to race. It's a big thing. Everybody, well, these are not racing dogs. They are Alaskan Malamutes, and they are freight dogs, and they are muscular. They're wide, big bones. They're not designed to race. Um, in fact, racing dogs are a design breed. They are bred small, narrow, light bones, light coat, so they run fast. Alaskan Malamutes were designed and evolved out of necessity to pull heavy freight. The, did you know the average family that had Alaskan Malamutes for thousands of years only had 3 dogs? That was their tradition, 3 dogs. And so you bet those dogs had to be strong, they had to be tough, and they had to be relatively broad and large in order to pull freight. And another thing is, they never had lead dogs, as we speak of lead dogs today, where you sit in a sled and say mush, and the dogs take off, and you got to lead them across the tundra. They never had that. They always led their team. And so the natural pace for Alaskan Malamutes has always been 3 to 5 miles an hour. But anyhow, we need to let our guys grow up and just have fun. And this mentality will stick with them for their entire life. When they're 14, 15 years old and they see a harness, they're going to want to still go, even though some of them can't. They want to. Now, you take a conventional trained sled dog, you show them a harness at 7 or 8 years old. I've seen dozens of them at dog yards where the musher brings out his harnesses and 3 or 4 dogs run into the house and hide. So we don't want this. And also I want to mention that the average sled dog in Alaska retires at 7 or 8. I got dogs on expedition teams that look like they're 2-year-old pups, as energetic as 2-year-old pups, and they're 12. So we need to break away from this. I don't know what kind of training, how this training method come about to where you just drive your dogs like machines. But the result, like they say, the proof is in the pudding. I can have my Alaskan Malamutes in my team for 12 years, and they're loving it. Even after 12 years, I can show them a harness at 14, 15 years old, and they're going to want to go. Now you do that with a conventional trained, any sled dog, and they're not going to make it 12 years, that's for sure. But like me, like every one of you who have Alaska Malamutes, they're part of the family. They're not just a piece of furniture to buy, sell, and trade like other sled dogs. They are part of the family, and we just remember that, let them have fun for those 2 years until their minds mature. And, if you want, check out get online and check out how the Norwegians train their skiers. They're kids. They let them play until they don't have any, structured training until they're 15 or 16 years old. It just goes to show you how not only this method works for people, but it does work for dogs as well. Dogs mature faster mentally. Of course, at 2 years old, they're pretty well set. 2.5. I prefer to wait to 3. I would love to keep all my dogs, playing until they're 3 before I harnessed them. But, I just can't afford to. I need them in the team. But at 2 years old, they're mature and they're ready to go. It's not a problem, and they'll be happy for the rest of their life. And another thing we need to talk about is Alaska Malamutes history, which should be the next series. How do we know how they are to be trained if we don't know where they're from? I mean, it'd be just like taking a beagle and training them to hunt ducks. I mean, no, we get a beagle to hunt rabbits and a Labrador to hunt ducks. We don't switch them around. And so what I'm saying is we need to know what type of environment Alaska Malamutes lived in for thousands of years, so we know how to train them. You know, it makes a difference. It does make a difference to know where they're from and environment. I've seen a lot of Alaskan Malamutes, just totally put in the team with the Huskies, and totally, they're destroyed. They just ruin them. And it's too bad. But, the Huskies, Alaskan Huskies, came from a whole different line, whole different environment. Whereas Alaskan Malamutes came from the Arctic, deep snow environment. And so we have to steer their training to cater to that, to develop those skills, those traits in a dog, rather than trying to develop a skill that's not in their nature. And that's what I'm saying. If you have a hunting dog, let's say a beagle, you want to train that dog to what his nature is all about, and that's to hunt rabbits. And that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't want to take a beagle and train him to hunt ducks. I mean, sure, he would hunt them, but he wouldn't be any good at it. And the same thing with Alaska Malamutes. We have to learn, educate ourselves to the environment they're from, and where they're, how they survived and what they did before we actually start training them. And basically training them, all we're doing is just nurturing their already natural talents. It's just that's how you train dogs. I've been training dogs for 57 years, and this is how we all train dogs. We just nurture their natural abilities. But until next time, I want to talk about a little bit more about training, and then also I want to go into the history. And there's nothing better than local history. I know you can dig up all kinds of information about the Alaskan Malamutes online and in books, but local history is very, very interesting. And I learned a lot from the elders just by talking to them years and years ago, 30, 40 years ago. And it's very interesting. So stay tuned and God bless.